Hey everyone, Exiles issue 1. This is one of those books that when it first came out, I was on the fence about. Back in the day, I used to be very anal retentive in terms of what I collected. And now kind of coming back with new perspectives, I'm like, damn, this is a series I wish that I would have paid a little more attention to because it is absolutely awesome. And what initially drew me to this series, the print date on it, by the way, was August 2001, is this book is kind of the follow-up to Blink from the Age of Apocalypse, because at the end of Omega, we kind of see how some mutants died, but we didn't know what happened to Blink. And so, spoilers, if you don't want to be spoiled, head over to your local comic shop and grab this series and come back, and you're back. So, spoilers abound. We open up on this random desert. It says, location, absolutely nowhere. Time, absolutely no win. Now, I need to go to my local comic shop and see if I can grab the first issue. Thankfully, I didn't realize I was kind of going through, before this on Marvel Unlimited, they had a Marvel app where they would release free comics every once in a while randomly, and I happened to just grab Exiles #1 at the time. Sadly, they don't do that anymore. You have to have a subscription, which I think is, I'm so sick of subscriptions-based stuff that I want to scream. But until I can get a physical copy of any of the books, at least we have the digital one to go over. So we talked about time, nowhere, no win, and then all of a sudden a portal opens. Everybody's thinking, okay, what's going on? And we just see in pure great Marvel style artwork, we just see Blink dumped through this portal, and she's just disoriented, and it's called Down the Rabbit Hole. This is Judd Winnick's story. Mike McCone pencils, Mark McKenna inks, JC colors, Sharp fonts, Paul Tertone letters, and then there's everyone else working on the book. So some big names on here. Love it. Blink looks just like how she was supposed to from the Age of Apocalypse. And what I think I enjoy about this is, I know we talk about how I hate quirky humor in modern books because it just isn't pulled off correctly. In this one, it makes sense. So we see Blink, flump, and then she just gets this mouthful of sand, like, yeah. And I love how they also give you this read-up. So if you never read The Age of Apocalypse, it says, Blink comes from a world where Professor Charles Xavier's dream of tolerance, equality, and enlightenment never came to pass. Instead, Apocalypse's dark vision of mutant superiority, human servitude, and death to all who stood in his way was the life she knew. The Age of Apocalypse. Her life was one fraught with pain but perseverance. She spent years jailed, tormented, isolated, and then battled her former captors and oppressors in an attempt to overthrow their regime. It was existence that was never supposed to exist. And just a moment ago, it ceased to be. So if you guys have never heard of The Age of Apocalypse or want to know more about it, I'll leave the playlist. I went over all of them. I still need to go over X-Men Alpha, which led back into the 616 universe leading up to Onslaught. So I will eventually get to that one. Just, you guys know that I'm in this transitional period of life with moving, settling, new job. It's a nightmare. So at least we can go this far into it. Now, before anything else can happen, we run into, I think her name's JT. I'm not 100% off the top of my head, but she goes, jumpy, aren't we? Relax. I rarely fight people in my underwear. How they got my underwear? I'll never know. You look like Nightcrawler. And so do you, kind of. But my excuse is probably more reasonable. Sorry. My name's Kurt Wagner is my father. I'm Talia Josephine Wagner. TJ, that's right. How do you know my dad? We used to fight together in the X-Men. I didn't know he had a daughter. Although you tend to get used to surprises, life being what it is, you're really his daughter. So I love how we have two different characters from two different realities meeting each other. So they know each other, but they don't. They have similar experiences, but don't. And the biggest one that I don't want to give away is we see Morph flying through. And we see Blink just like, Morph, oh my God, Morph, you're alive. Yeah, alive and getting my alabaster skin roasted. You're alive. You're really alive. I didn't know if you were going to survive at all, but here you are. You're not hurt. Are you okay? You look okay. Do you have any idea what that portal was? It wasn't one of mine. Well, someone's a wee bit overstimulated. No more cappuccinos for you. Now, there's a little reveal with Morph that I do not want to give away. And then here, this is probably one of the oddest looking ones. This is Thunderbird. This isn't Warpath. This is John Hudson. I was like, what is the last name? It's Jimmy Hudson, and then his older brother was John, right? Or no, it wasn't Proudsmore. I can't remember. But this, we all know Thunderbird, X-Men 94 and 95. Anyway, so we can see that he's this big, beefy dude. And you're like, whoa, what is going on? And then Mimic. Was it Mimic? Yeah, from way back in the day. But anyway, you just see this really odd team. Now, coming into the main story where we start to kind of understand things, we see a random dude making coffee. And he says that he's a time broker. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Because I was so anal retentive in my books, I didn't know what the hell a time broker was until I watched Loki. So now I understand. Back then, not so much. So everyone thinks he's the villain that's brought them here. And he goes, you are in some serious trouble. Now, could you please put me down? I have muffins burning. Now, see, this is how humor for me is used, because it's not like, oh my God, that's just so LOL, so random, and he. No, he's deflecting, kind of trying to deflate the situation, because Warpath's about to punch his lights out. And so he's trying to change the subject, again, deflect. So he's able to finally get everyone to come down. He's like, let me explain. Let's get a little history on each of you. Now, look how TJ says, flat TV. Nice. As where, this was 2001. This is, oh my God, 23 years later. Oh my goodness. Anyway. Oh God, then more. I forgot. Can we watch porn? Oh God. Anyway, this was simply to tell you a little bit about each other and the worlds that you come from. Watch and learn. Now, all of them, again, have different histories. So Nightcrawler shows that he had a daughter, when he has this interesting look about him, and how he eventually was kind of the second in command to Wolverine after Professor X retired. So she kind of comes from this really happy life. John Proudstar, there it is. And we learn about what happened, why he looks the way he does. I don't want to give it away, but it is just absolutely terrible. And then we talk about, again, Rogue and Magneto having a son. This is, what is his name? Hold on a second. It'll come to me. Magnus, child of Magneto and Rogue. Again, another tragic backstory. And then we get another story on Morph, Mimic, and how he basically went on to lead the X-Men and became this major hero. And so we kind of have like these tragic stories that still kind of follow the 616 script. And then I like how they end up on Blink, talking about the Age of Apocalypse, how she never knew who Professor Xavier was, and saved by Creed, and fought with Magneto and Rogue as the leaders of the X-Men. Now you're saying something has happened in your past. It's like a DNA strand. Something's been changed. And now if you guys go back, you're going to have these terrible futures because something has been altered. So here's where we kind of get the idea of what the whole reason of Exiles is. They got to go through and fix all these different strands of their timelines if they want to go back. But what I like is how he says, this is what happens. If you don't do this, you don't do that. You don't do this, you don't do that. I want you guys to read it. That's why I'm not giving it away. But Blink's the most interesting, because he says, if you don't accomplish yours, Blink, you were never born. And you have nowhere to go back to. Because before Cebulski, when he did the what was his name? What was his pen name? Something Akira, I can't remember. But he did kind of a sequel to the Age of Apocalypse, saying that the bombs didn't destroy. But at this point, that had not been established. So if Blink doesn't do this, she'll have nothing to go back to, because that universe was completely annihilated. Now, their first quest is they got to go to this particular world and save a certain mutant. In this reality, superheroes are completely, outlawed, and mutants were almost driven to the point of extinction, and any new one that's born is aborted. And you're like, geez Louise. And again, one thing that this is early 2000s, so they still kind of had that 90s mentality that they were able to hack the Area 51 with a computer from essentially Radio Shack. It's just random. And TJ definitely steals the show. She's just this very upbeat character. You can see all the mannerisms of Kurt Wagner in her. And I just immediately enjoyed her character, along with Morph. And Mimic, even though this is what he looks like, he reminds me of Sam Gerthy. He very much has Sam's mannerisms. So it's a great team. And yeah, they eventually have to go fight Area 51 to save this one of these last surviving mutants from this universe. And they're thinking that in doing so, they're going to be able to kind of start this sort of revolution in this reality. But yeah, that is not the case. Everything kind of feels for naught at the end of this issue. And you're just thinking, oh my God, how could this particular mutant have so much hatred? But after the Time Broker explains what this universe is like, you sort of can empathize with why there's so much hurt and why the Exiles are just taken aback by what their mission is. So I don't want to give any more away. I want you guys to go to your local comic shop and support it, or wherever you like to get your books and action figures and get this series. I'm going to try to grab an original #1 and the subsequent issues afterwards because, yeah, I want some more Exiles in my life. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, we really appreciate it if I'd take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little morph bell next, subscribe. That way as I can upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel. I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or the socials, in which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.